So, I wanted to do a quick, just a quick reaction video to Mortal Instruments Book 1, The City of Bones, which I read this month as part of my January TBR. So, first of all, it's not bad. It's also not great. I think it's definitely a debut novel, though not obviously the first thing Cassandra Clare wrote, which we all know. She's very famous in fanfiction circles for having written Very Secret Diaries of Draco Malfoy, I believe is what it's called. So it's not, she's obviously, she does have experience writing, but it's not the most polished writing. Particularly, and maybe this is just me, I don't think necessarily a young adult reading this novel would be bothered as much by this as I am, but there's an extreme abuse of simile and metaphor in this book, which from kind of just a craft perspective is really obnoxious. As a reader, it was quite distracting and obnoxious. I'm a big fan of showing and letting your reader figure it out, because readers are smart. And so when you describe something, whether it's how a person looks, or how a city looks, or how a couch looks, or what pattern of the fabric is, say what it is. You don't need to say what it is and then describe how it's like something else. You can just say how it is, because that's how it is. You don't have to use a simile for everything. And that happens in this book. You'll read a paragraph, and there will be at least one simile, but usually more than one. And it's unnecessary. I would assume that drops off in later books as she wrote more, as she became more experienced. But we'll see. I do have plans. I own books 2 and 3 of this series, and I do have plans to read those 2 books. I don't know if I'll finish the series. Maybe if it really drags me in, I will. At this point, I don't have plans to do that, but I'll read the next 2 and I'll see how those go. I've heard that they get better. So overall, not a bad book, not a perfect book. I think I gave it 3.5 stars on Goodreads because I wouldn't read it again. I probably wouldn't have finished reading it if I wasn't trying to read more this year, but that probably says more about me than necessarily the book. A few other things. Characters. I'm torn. A few of the characters I really liked. A few of the characters I didn't really care for. Clary wasn't bad. She's 15. She acts like a 15-year-old girl. There's really nothing wrong with that. And she's not overly whiny. She's not an overly damsel in distress. Neither is she like suddenly perfect and total kick-ass because she suddenly discovers that she's a shadow hunter. Simon, I think, is not a terrible character. He's kind of interesting. He treads the edge of having nice guy syndrome. I like Luke more or less. However, I don't like how I don't like the werewolf mythos in this book. There is a very callous disregard for life that seems to be ingrained in werewolf culture. The whole Luke needs power, so he goes and he just kills someone to get power, which is not the action of a hero and kind of bugs me. I don't like needless death, especially when I feel like he could have just gone to the werewolves and been like, hey, I'm a werewolf, you're a werewolf, I need help, will you help me fight evil? And most people would have been like, okay, maybe it's in our best interest to help you fight evil. We'll do it. Especially considering you're fighting an evil that hates us. I don't like callous disregard for life. I would have loved to have more of Clary's mother. Not in the book. No, see, I should qualify that. I want more Lena Headey? Lena Headey? You know who I'm talking about. The actress who plays Clary's mother in the movie. I want more of her as Clary's mother. Not necessarily Clary's mother in the book. I wasn't super into her in the book. She's really cool in the movie. It's Jace. Don't like Jace. And it's probably because he's a 15-year-old boy, and 15-year-old boys are... don't dig him. You could just shove him out in an airlock and I'd be fine with that. Okay, so let's get into a few things about book versus movie. I really enjoyed the movie, The Mortal Instruments, The City of Bones with Lily Collins. I actually watched the movie, enjoyed it, and went out and bought the books because I was like, oh, I should read these and see how they compare. Because I know a lot of people didn't like the movie. And so I was like, if this is a movie they didn't like, the books must be amazing. The first 75% of this book is almost a carbon copy of the movie. The arrival of Valentine is basically where the book and the movie diverge. So for that portion, the changes are very slight, very inconsequential. Changes don't mean anything because the story is the same. The themes are the same, and the changes are so slight. And I will say that the first 75% of the movie is much better than the last 25%. The last 5% of the movie is not great. It does fall apart a bit, and it's not John Rhys Meyers' best performance. And I don't understand Valentine in the movie. He's not great. As a character, he's not that different than Valentine in the book, but how he approaches things is different. My guess is that the choices the writers and directors of the movie made for the last 25% of the book were for speed, because the movie was already getting too long and they needed to wrap things up. And that's why everything takes place in the Institute and everything gets wrapped up there. It was purely for expediency. Ultimately, I don't think Valentine in the movie and Valentine in the book are all that different. Neither of them is very well developed or explored. Their motives don't really make sense. I mean, they do, but they're not fully fleshed out. I do not know why people hate the movie, because I don't feel it's actually all that different from the book. Fundamentally, it's the same. You walk away with the same information, essentially, and the characters all roughly have the same relationships. If I had just read the book, if I hadn't seen the movie first, probably wouldn't have been hooked. So I'm not the target demographic of this book. When they're having problems, especially romantic relationship problems that seem like the end of the world, I'm kind of like, just wait 3 years. You'll change. Your problems will change. Things like making enough money to pay rent will be a hell of a lot more important. And all of this is just going to be silly. And I don't care if you're a demon hunter. That's the way the world works. So I'm not the target demographic for this book. It's decent. If I knew someone who liked YA fiction and liked kind of fantasy books like this, would I recommend it? Maybe. I would probably just give them my copy. I don't see myself reading it again. We'll see how my opinion of the series changes next month. I'm going to be reading book 2, City of Ashes. Maybe I'll like Jace better in future books. I don't know. So far, you could do better, Clary.